Okay, so welcome today. Welcome everyone to today's presentation. Just a couple of notes and housekeeping items I just wanted to mention. While the presentation is going on, if you want to just keep yourselves on mute, and then you could ask any questions that you have by either unmuting yourself, or you could use a text chat, and I'll watch that and I'll bring those questions to Tammy. Just one, in case people are not aware of, we do have some funding available through our WEOC Women's Entrepreneur Loans. So they're up to $50,000. And if you'd like to get some more information, feel free to reach out to your business growth advisor or your counselor. Or if you don't have one, you could put something in the chat there and I could get you hooked up with one. And right after this at 12:15, if you're interested and want to attend, the webinar after it is on the doing a business plan in preparation for to apply for WEOC funding. So is it the startup one, sorry, or is this or the last expansion one tonight? I can't remember now.
Today is the last of the expansion.
Okay. So
startup starts next.
Okay, thanks. So if you're in an expansion business, or if you're in a business right now and looking to expand, that one's for you. And then the following 3 weeks after that at 12:15 are the startup ones. So you're more than welcome to attend that. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest speaker, Tamara Reynolds. And Tamara Reynolds is a retired police officer who has experienced PTSD as a result of traumatic incidences in the city of Thunder Bay, and found that art therapy helped her to heal her PTSD symptoms and move forward. She is the owner and operator of North Superior Art Therapy Services and has been in business since 2018. When not seeing clients, Tammy enjoys walking her dog, playing the trumpet in the city community band, draws and paints, and plays hockey, all mindful activities to offset the stressors of running a business. Welcome, Tammy, and thanks for coming in today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lori, and thank you. Nice to meet you all. So I'm just going to share my screen a little bit. So as Lori mentioned, I'm a retired police officer and, experienced lots of trauma as a result. Here we go. Where's my slideshow here? So just wanted to welcome you all to Stress Busters. A little art goes a long way. So I went to Lakehead University to get my visual arts degree, and then I went to Lakehead University to get my Bachelor of Education degree. But at the time that I graduated from university, there weren't any full-time art jobs available. So I did a couple of odd jobs and everything, and ended up in the policing world. Started as a dispatcher telling cops where to go on and off the air, and then became a police officer myself. So the DTATI is for Diploma from Toronto Art Therapy Institute. So in 2016, I was accepted to the Toronto Art Therapy Institute and became a professional art therapist. And I'm also a registered psychotherapist. So I belong to the College of Registered Psychotherapists. So that's just a little bit more about myself. So we're going to get into a little bit of an introduction about what stress is. We're going to talk about some challenges for women. I'm just going to tell you what art therapy is. I know when I first heard about it from my psychiatrist, when she asked what I was going to do when I retired, and she said, "Have you thought about art therapy?" And I went, "Art what now?" So I had no idea what art therapy was. And how to incorporate some art into your busy schedule. And then we're going to do a little art directive. So, and again, it's about the process and not being an artist. So that's the little art goes a long way. All right. So we know that stress is a normal psychological response to any perceived threat or challenge. In small amounts, stress can actually be helpful because it can increase your focus and your energy in the performance. But when it becomes chronic, it can negatively impact our health, and it can lead to anxiety and depression, irritability, and a lot of times difficulty in concentrating. A lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms come in, like substance abuse, overeating, social isolation can develop from chronic stress. So it's essential that we find healthy ways to manage our stress, either through exercise, mindfulness activities, art, music, reading, those kinds of things, social supports, and of course, if you have to take therapy. It does show in research that men and women respond differently to stress. For the most part, women report that their stress is more related to interpersonal relationships, caregiving responsibilities, and work-life balance, whereas men report more stress related to work demands and financial pressures. We tend to go to social support and emotional expression to cope with the stress, while men try to use problem solving and distraction. We're more likely to experience some negative impacts of health, which of course can lead to that anxiety and depression and some autoimmune disorders, whereas men are more likely to experience physical health problems like heart disease and hypertension. So we know, being women in business and being part of Peril, that there are lots of challenges for women in business. We're aware of that. Despite progress, we're often paid less, we have fewer opportunities for advancement, and we may face other challenges to being a business owner, which can cause more stress. So there is hope, because there is art therapy that can help with some of the stressors. Because when we face those stressors in business, we find that we are probably being more chronically stressed out, if that makes sense. So when we talk about art therapy, sometimes it's nice to know what it is. So basically, it's a form of psychotherapy that uses creative expression to promote emotional and psychological healing, personal growth, and self-expression. It can help people and individuals gain self-awareness, regulate emotions, and improve their communication skills. You can also develop some problem-solving skills and increase your self-esteem by doing art therapy. It's beneficial for a beneficial tool for everyone of all ages and backgrounds. And it's about exploring your thoughts and emotions and experience the process in a creative and a supportive environment. And the beauty of art therapy is you don't have to be an artist in order to be involved in the process of art therapy. So on the slide, there's 3 different things that I've done. So this sculpture here is made out of Crayola clay. And it was just to express how I was feeling one day, and I felt that I was disjointed. It's supposed to be a tree. It's kind of hard to see that, but it's a tree and it's actually hollow in the middle. So on that day, I was feeling sort of hollow, to be honest. So that's what came out from this sculpture when I created it. The top right-hand corner is called the crumpled paper exercise, and I'll describe that a little bit more, but it's red flowers. As you can see, there's some red flowers that developed. And on the bottom right-hand side, this is what I call an imprint. So you take a bunch of paint, you drop it on the page, and then you pull the page off, and it creates an imprint. And as you turn it around, it will reveal, or it could reveal, either things within the paint. In this case, I was actually going for waves. I was thinking about the ocean. I was thinking about water. And when I turned it, I saw this blue face. So now that I've told you it's a blue face, you probably will see that blue face, and you won't see anything else. So the idea behind art therapy is that you find your own meaning and your own images within the art that you create. So it can reduce stress in many ways. It can help to calm, and can be a meditative practice in order to help relax and reduce your stress. It actually gives you that sense of control and mastery over the creative process, because you're in charge of it, and it helps people to feel more empowered and capable of managing the stress. Your emotions and experiences, when you put them through art, you can process and manage difficult emotions, which I find is very helpful, especially having suffered from PTSD. And it's a safe and supportive environment where you can explore without fear and judgment. There is research that has shown that art therapy can help reduce stress. So in 2019, there was a study with some college students, and they found that it was an effective means of reducing stress and anxiety when they were going into an exams. It also has helped students in high schools when they're going into any high performance, their exams or SATs, which they do in the States. So that's what that study is based on. There was a systematic review in 2020 that they focused on adults and were looking at reducing symptoms of depression. And they found that it was effective in reducing the depression and the anxiety. And in 2018, there was a study also that they found that art therapy was effective in reducing stress and improving coping skills among caregivers of people that have dementia. And also it can help with individuals who are suffering from cancer and dementia. It helps to express themselves a little bit better. So I just have a couple of case studies here that I'm just going to put out there. So these are two business women that have given me permission to share their story. Their names have been changed to protect their identities, so they're pseudonyms. So Mary is a freelance writer. She's a mother of two, and she struggled with anxiety and depression related to work and family responsibilities. So she started to come and see me once a week and found that creating art helped her to relax and express her emotions. Over time, she developed a regular art practice that she incorporated into her daily routine, and she found that it actually helped to manage her stress and feel more grounded. So she also was able to develop some coping strategies for managing her anxiety and depression, which included breath work, mindful activities, how to relieve anxiety, which I'll give you some tricks to do that towards the end. So she actually began to introduce art into her own daily routine and found that it was really helpful for her and maintained her stress levels and her mental health. So Emily runs a small boutique shop, which I made that up. She actually runs a small business, but she was struggling with burnout and feeling overwhelmed by the demands of her business. So she started coming to one of my art therapy groups once a week, and where she could connect with other women and explore her creativity in a supportive environment. So she discovered some techniques for managing her stress, including mindful meditation and breath work, and she integrated that into her daily routine. She also found that she felt less isolated and more connected to other women who were experiencing sort of the same types of things, the burnout and feeling overwhelmed. She was able to balance her business and her personal life. And with the group, she was also finding new sources of inspiration and creativity that she incorporated into her work. So from those case studies, you can see that it gives you an opportunity to relieve your stress, but also incorporating some sort of art into your daily lives. So the image on the right-hand side, peeking polar bear, this is another one of those drop the paint and create an image. So again, I was turning the image around and I saw this little face poking through. So that's that little polar bear here peeking through the green, the brown, or the blues and the greens and the yellows. So, sorry, excuse me. So a lot of times I get people saying, well, I can't do art and I'm not an artist, but it's not about being an artist. It's about relieving stress in a way that is good for you. And even if you sit on the phone and you start doodling on the page, that's basically what you're doing. You're actually doing art. I use this analogy a lot when people come in, and tell them, so when you were 5 or 6 and you came home and you had a little blue blob on a piece of paper and you went home and showed that to your parents, and they said, oh, Janie, that's beautiful. What is it? And you said, that's a dog. Well, they're very, gushing and what a great looking dog, even though it's a blue blob on the page. So they gush about it. They say you're a great artist, keep it up, all that kind of stuff. And they are really encouraging. But if you came home with that as an adult and said, look what I did at art today, and it's a blue blob, the reaction would be, You can't draw. Like, what are you thinking? A blue blob is a dog? Like, come on. So what happens is we start to internalize that voice when we hear it, and it becomes our inner critic. So when I get a lot of folks that come in, especially when they're dealing with depression and anxiety, they feel that they can't do something, and then they get frustrated because they figure that they're not an artist. Well, it doesn't have to. You don't have to be an artist in order to do it. So some of the things that I have put on here to incorporate art activities into your busy life. So one of the first things is to set aside a specific time. So schedule it into your calendar like you would any other appointment. Pick a time that works for you. It can either be on the weekend, it can be before work, after work, at lunchtime. Take a little sketchbook. You get the dollar store, you can buy those little sketchbooks, and have that with you if you want to do a little bit of a sketch or a doodle. And you don't need to commit to a large art project or spend hours doing it. Even 10 minutes a day is something. And you start small with that. And keep it simple. You don't need any fancy art supplies or anything. If you have crayons at home with kids, or a marker or a pencil or pen, it doesn't matter. Just keep it simple. And the dollar store has great art supplies where they're available for they're good quality, and they're inexpensive. If you don't know where to start, then you can use the guided resources. There's lots of things online that, including art prompts, that can help you consider doing some art and finding different things to do. Or you can, of course, book an appointment with an art therapist and make it a habit. So like anything, incorporating art into your routine may take time, but if you make it a consistent part of your routine, even if it's just a few minutes a day, it can help to become a regular part of your self-care. So some of the activities to bust stress. So here's are some things that I came up with that you could try at home, that you can try. I do these with my clients. All this artwork is mine, by the way, so I didn't have to ask permission, but all this art is my own. So intuitive mandala drawing. So basically you take a plate, you draw a circle, or use a protractor, draw a circle, create a bunch of lines or any kind of image that you want, and then just color it in. So this was using Sharpie markers. So that's why it kind of looks a little bit like, some of the markers look like it's a little transparent. So it could look like, a stained glass window. So that's one thing you can do. Collage poems. If you have any old magazines at home, you just create a collage poem. And so this collage poem was done. I was feeling a little bit down for whatever reason. So you just flip through the magazines and you pick words that attract your attention. So in this case, I just thought to myself, that's one of the most mindful, smart things. Find your new course where you are crushing it. Watch the action, hang in there, putting life back in style. Perform your best, relax. Attract extreme senses, you. So it doesn't have to rhyme, but it's a collage poem, as I call it. And sometimes it can represent sort of what's going through your life at the time. And it's kind of a good visual way to see it in a collage poem like that. Some of the other ideas, guided imagery. So you take a couple minutes and you just think about something that's pleasant, and then you just create a drawing that represents that. So on the one on the left, the guided imagery, I was thinking about the beach. I was thinking about going away because it's been winter, and wanted to go somewhere warm. So that's what came as this image of the beach and the water and a couple of sailboats. So that's the guided imagery thing. The crumpled paper is a really interesting one. It can relieve stress. So the idea of it is you take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, you put it on the tips of your fingers, you think about where your anxiety is felt in your body, and you start to transfer that anxiety to the paper. And you do it by breathing exercises. So you'd breathe in and out, and you would transfer that anxiety to that paper. And when you felt the anxiety is transferred to the paper, you actually crumple up that paper into a nice ball. And then as you were breathing through it, you spread out the piece of paper. Then you take a marker and you trace the folds. And you just trace the folds in the marker with the marker. and then you fill in the spaces that you see. So in here, you see a little heart, there's another heart here, kind of a heart here, a little bit of one here. So it's in a sea of blue, but there's some red expressing some love or some hearts in it. So that's what you do with the crumpled paper. All right. Blackout poetry. Has anyone ever heard of blackout poetry before? No, some people kind of, yeah. Yeah, so it's basically, if you have any old books that you're not using, I actually went to Value Village and purchased a whole bunch of the old Reader's Digest books. So what I'll do is I'll cut out a page of the book, you read through it, and you pick words that resonate with you, and you create something different out of it, and then you black out the rest of the words. So you get sort of a different passage, so it means something different. So in this case, the feeling returned. How cold, he laughed. No mistake about it, it was cold. To make a fire, a supply of sticks. He got wood, beginning a roaring fire. Melted the ice, ate his lunch. The cold forced away the dog, lying close for warmth. Pulled mittens, started along to leave, but the dog knew it was not good. It was the time to lie in a hole, wait for this awful cold to stop. Bond between the dog and the man, the dog for its own sake. It looked toward the fire. The man spoke. The dog started and looked around him and saw no signs. So whatever it is that your passage is, you just create something different. So that's what's called blackout poetry. The other thing is there's lots of mandala coloring books available. So I just put a couple of examples on here. You can buy them at the dollar store or anything or anywhere where they're sold. These were available on Amazon if you were interested in that. So stress buster doodles. So these are some of my stress buster doodles. So one on the left is I just did a bunch of lines and then used my markers and colored in the bottom part with the markers, and then a pencil crayon here and pencil crayon up here. So it can be anything, and it's just a mindful activity. Another one, taking a ruler and just creating a bunch of lines and just filling it in with color, any color you want. I had limited markers. I limited my markers actually to 4, and that's what I used. It was just one of the techniques that I use. And then just making random lines. This one on the right-hand side is just random lines. I've been reading a lot of books about World War II. So for some reason, this image came and it reminds me of the beaches when they had the things along the beaches, the barbed wire goes through it. I can't remember what they're called, but you know what I mean. So that's what it reminded me of. So it's just a mindful activity that you can do. And it's good to relieve that stress. All right. Is there any questions so far, or am I going too fast? Everybody good?
There's none in the chat, but if anybody
Okay.
has any questions, you can ask now or.
Yeah,
Oh.
sure.
Yeah, one question. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, you can unmute yourself. Sure. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't have any question. I just put a thumbs up that everything is all good.
Sorry.
Oh.
Thanks.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So we're going to do a stress buster mindful doodle. Okay. So the objective of this for you is to engage in a relaxing and meditative activity that encourages mindful awareness and creative expression. So hopefully you have a piece of paper, any size or type will do, and a pen or pencil or a marker, and it can be any color. Okay. So normally what I do in a session is that we will go through the art making, and then you have the opportunity to share. And if you're comfortable with sharing with the group, then that's fine. It's a safe and comfortable environment, hopefully, that you feel comfortable enough to share. And everything is confidential so that if you do share, then it doesn't go anywhere than this room. It's a controlled environment, okay? So get comfortable in your space if you can, as much as you can. So we're going to set our intention to be present and mindful during the activity. So we're just going to take a couple of deep breaths. Okay, so one in and out. And in and out. And one more. In and out. And now with your pen or paper and a marker or whatever, you're just going to start making random marks on the paper when you're ready. Keep breathing through it just to be present. We're going to focus on the process of drawing. And just think about the sensation of your hand across the paper, what it sounds like, what it feels like. If you're using a marker, is it making any sound? And if your mind starts to wander, you feel distracted, just bring it back to your attention to your drawing and focusing on that drawing. And not worrying about the finished product or making it look like anything, just doing some random marks, shapes on the page. And as you do it, just concentrate on your breath. And just putting anything on the page that comes to mind. It could be words as well if they come to mind. Just enjoying the moment. And keep drawing for as long as you like until you feel ready to stop. And then as you look at your drawing, you can turn it in different ways and see if you can see anything developing as a result of that drawing that you did. Or you might want to emphasize certain areas, or if you see shapes or animals or anything like that. And just start to develop those shapes. And you can start filling in areas if you want to with color, or if you're using your pencil, or if you happen to have some markers with you. And just concentrate on your breath as you're doing it. So this is about being present in the moment. Sometimes thoughts can come in, intrusive thoughts, and we acknowledge those thoughts are there, but continue to just doodle on the page or coloring in those areas that you want to develop. Just acknowledging that those thoughts have happened. But not dwelling on them. And as you're drawing, it's about engaging the other part of your brain. So how are we doing with that? Is everybody pretty much done, you think? Luciana, you're nodding your head, you're good. Carmen, you good? Okay. Kylie? Okay.
Me too.
All right. Lori and Shorey, did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, a couple of questions. So just a few things for discussion. So I'll just throw it out to the group, the first question, and you can answer or put in the chat. What did you notice when you started the doodle? Did you notice anything? Great. So what did you notice any thoughts or feelings when it came up during the process? When were you thinking of things? Did it help to concentrate on your breath?
Well, when you said listen to how the pen draws, I heard that. And then I
Mhm.
was trying to concentrate on drawing and not concentrate on how ridiculous I'm doing stuff, or that doesn't make sense. Am I supposed to put lines here? Maybe I should do this. So trying not to overthink it as I normally
Yeah.
do.
Well, and that's what happens sometimes, because a lot of times we're not engaging that art process, because when we were kids and someone said, you can't draw, or you can't do this, we shut off, right? Like we say, well, I'm not good at it, so I'm not going to do it anymore. Why bother? Even though you might enjoy doing it. And when I talk to students, I tell them, like I play hockey and I used to play goal for 30 some odd years. Well, my knees can't take it anymore. So I can't play goal anymore, but that's the only thing I ever wanted to do, was to be a goalie. But now I can do something else. So now I still play, but I play either defense or winger or center. So it's about changing that thought process from what you can't do to what you can do. So instead of saying things like, well, I can't run 5 miles, or I can't do something, well, what can you do? And it's just flipping a little bit in your brain to say, no, you know what? I can do a lot of things. So as much as I used to tell myself I can't do math, like I'm terrible at it, and I always fail the tests, I go, no, you know what? I can do math if I put my mind to it. And I don't always fail the tests. Sometimes, but then I work harder at it. Right. So it's switching that brain a little bit, or the thought process in our brain, to go, no, you know what, I can do something, and I don't always fail, and never ever happens. So we say, you never clean up after yourself. You never do the dishes. Well, no, sometimes you don't. And we choose to do things, right? And I hear a lot of people say, well, I should be doing the dishes, or I should be doing this. So when I hear that word should, I equate it to shame. So we feel shame when we say I should be doing something, because we're taking it on ourselves and going, well, I just must be a failure because I should be doing it, but I'm not doing it. Right? So if we change that to go, you know what, I choose not to do the dishes today. I choose to do something else, or I choose, rather than that should word. And that helps to address that inner critic. It also helps to address those thoughts that you can't do art. Well, sure you can. You can doodle, you can draw a line. It doesn't have to be a straight line, but we let ourselves listen to that inner critic that says, well, it should be a straight line. Well, who says? Have you seen Jackson Pollock? Have you seen Andy Warhol's art? Have you seen Impressionism? Right? And you're not making yourself like a whole artist. You're just sitting there doodling and just releasing some stress and some anxiety. And that's sort of what this whole thing was about today, is to give you a couple of ideas for stress busters. And again, the art that I showed you is mine. And yes, I am an artist, I will admit it, but you don't have to be in order to just doodle. And that's the idea of it. You just want to doodle and to create that space for your brain to give you that little bit of extra pause and be mindful and be focusing on the breath. And sometimes when we want to be mindful or that we're expressing or experiencing anxiety, I use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Is anyone familiar with that? The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique? Yeah, Kylie's nodding her head. So when you're feeling anxious or when you're feeling overwhelmed and your brain is in that state of hyperarousal, you want to think about your 5 senses. So you want to look around and go, what are 5 things I can see right now? And you look around and you actually name them. Oh, I can see the computer. I can see my cat. I can see this. So 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can smell, 2 things that you can touch, and 1 thing that you can taste. So that's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Okay. And it can be anything. So you could do 5 things you can hear, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can interchange them. But the idea is to just engage in your senses, those 5 senses, to relieve that anxiety and the stress. Do a little doodle while you're sitting there relieving that stress and doing those 5 things, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, and it'll help you to just de-stress a little bit. Also doing some self-care activities. So anything that you enjoy doing, whether it's sculpting, whether it's gardening, whether it's walking, playing sports, reading, whatever it is, a nice hot bath with bubbles or Epsom salts, anything to release that stress for self-care. And that's all I got.
Oh, that's great, Tammy. No, that was really great. I'm sure everybody appreciated and learned something from you today. So thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions before we?
No.
No? Well, Tammy's put her contact information there.
I have one
Sure,
question.
go ahead.
Sorry.
Yep.
So can it be this just paint by numbers, like instead of painting from scratch? Like, does it consider like art therapy as well?
Oh, absolutely. That's art as therapy for sure. Because you're concentrating
yeah.
on that creative process and you're concentrating on where the colors are going to go. And yeah, absolutely. Engaging in any creative process is good. So yeah,
Okay.
those, diamond painting, have you heard of those diamond paintings?
Mhm.
That's it's art as therapy. And there is a difference between, people going to those paint nights, and that is art as therapy. The difference between what I do is there's actually a therapeutic part to it. And there's some psychoanalysis or psychobabble. I won't say psychoanalysis because I don't analyze, but there's that therapeutic part of it. But yeah, those paint by numbers are awesome. Or any puzzles, if you do puzzles or anything like that. The diamond paintings, knitting, anything like that that's creative, crocheting. It's just engaging a different part of your brain, right?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Well, if you think of anything and want to talk with Tamara, her contact information is there. So I just want to say thanks everybody for joining us today, and thank you so much for coming in and talking about this. It's it's a great webinar that you do the marketing ones, you do the every other ones, but sometimes you just need to, because opening your own business is quite stressful, right? So you need to have these tools to help you, because if you're not healthy to do that, you can't run your business. So thank you so much for doing this for us today. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was great to meet you all, and hopefully it's given you a little bit of ideas about what to do when you're stressed out or when you need to talk. You know where to find me, and if you do, then Lori will have my contact information as well. So
For sure.
thank you so much.
All right. Thanks very much. And
Okay.
thanks everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye-bye.